This Titan build legitimately makes you unkillable. And if you want to learn how to get 2 different types of overshields, restoration, radiant, and a ×4 damage surge, while also making an unlimited amount of special ammo, make sure to keep watching until the end. So, without wasting any more of your time, let's get straight into the video. Now before we go any deeper, we want to use 2 exotics for this build. One being Aegir Scepter, and 2, Icefall Mantle. Icefall Mantle is a pretty forgotten exotic, and you might have forgotten about what it does. And as a Titan player, looking at this exotic perk description, this might be a lot of text. And to put this into simple terms, any stasis final blows give you stacks of stasis weapon surge, from ×1 all the way to ×4. And this also replaces your barricade ability with your own personal overshield. And the moment that you pop this, you gain ×4 immediately, while also creating a slow field when activated. The caveat being that you can't sprint or use your lift. But this is really okay since our goal with this build is to become a walking tank. And I know that I mentioned Aegir Scepter, but I'm going to be going over that weapon a little bit later in the weapons choice section of the video. But moving on to the Prismatic subclass itself, we're going to be taking Sunbreaker. Now, if you've watched my previous Titan build video, you might understand why I'm choosing Sunbreaker, but TLDR, this super is pretty butt without the sunspots. And we're purely using this for our weapon of choice and a fragment I'm going to be covering a little bit soon. Moving on to the class ability, we're going to be using Rally Barricade, since this has a shorter cooldown than the Towering Barricade. And before you keep typing that comment about Thruster being shorter than Rally Barricade, in my testing, Thruster does not work with Icefall Mantle and will just give you the Thruster without even doing the slow field or anything. So just don't use it. I don't really care what jump you use, and we're going to be taking the Throwing Shield. This ability will allow us to get Radiant with a certain fragment and give us another layer of overshield. Next for the grenades, we're going to be using a Pulse Grenade, since this kind of double dips into one of the fragments I'm going to be choosing, and I'm going to cover that really soon. Now when it comes to the aspects, we're actually going to be taking Unbreakable. Now I understand with all the Titan drama, people believe that this is pretty crap, but to my surprise, this actually has a lot of synergy with some of the fragments I'm going to be choosing. But if you don't know what it does, basically when you hold your grenade ability, you hold a mini Sentinel shield that is basically an Uno reverse card, as the people that shoot into it will be eating the damage that they had when you push it back into them. Pause. But while you're holding it, you also gain a Void Overshield, while at the same time anything that touches your shield while blocking will also be disoriented. So that's even double layers of protection. Next we're going to be taking Diamond Lance, since we're always going to be making them from Aegir Scepter, and it's pretty good for crowd control since freezes are nice. Now I usually go one at a time, but I'm going to be grouping these 2 fragments together, being Facet of Dominance as well as Facet of Mending. Facet of Dominance makes your Void grenades do Weaken and your Arc grenades do Jolt, while Facet of Mending makes your grenade final blows cure you. Now the interesting interaction with this and Unbreakable is that your Unbreakable shield, when you do the Uno reverse shit, it makes it weaken anything that's in front of you. And usually when you do have to end up popping the shield, you're usually low, so when you do pop it back, you get a burst of healing when that grenade goes off. So I find this pretty useful and gets me out of some pretty tough situations. And then since we're using a Pulse Grenade, if we don't want to hold up our shield, we have that to jolt any target that we want. So we're utilizing all the parts of these 2 fragments alone. Moving on from that, we're going to be using Facet of Balance, as light damage grants melee energy and darkness damage grants grenade energy. And since we're always using Aegir Scepter, we're going to be getting a lot of grenades, and this creates a pretty nice loop, as we can either throw Arc Grenade to jolt targets or hold it to defend ourselves, weaken, and then get our melee back, throw it, get an Overshield, as well as Radiant to hopefully kill the target by then. This creates a really nice gameplay loop, and I really recommend this a lot. Then for our next fragment, we're going to be using Facet of Awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generate an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. And we have not only Aegir Scepter to make stasis shards, which help us restore melee energy, we also can make void breaches from the weakened targets to make class ability energy, which helps us survive and get the Icefall Mantle exotic perk. On top of that, ionic traces can be created from either our secondary of choice or our Jolt Grenade, which gives us ability energy in general. And this is once again another layer that helps us get all of our abilities in rotation quite well. Next, facet of purpose. Basically, picking up an orb gives you your survivability tool based on the super you're using. Since we're using Sunbreaker, we get restoration, and if you choose to pop Sunbreaker, you will make a fire sprite from Facet of Awakening. And fire sprites give us grenade energy, so this is also pretty good. Then last but not least, to get Radiant, we have Facet of Dawn. Powered melee final hits grant us Radiant, and melee final blows make us Radiant alongside anyone around us Radiant as well. Now I understand that we have an artifact perk helping us get Radiant Orbs, but I really want to make this build timeless. If you choose that this is pretty useless for you, you can feel free to swap this to anything of your choosing. Now moving on to the weapons of choice, obviously we're going to be using Aegir Scepter. To explain how this gun works in Titan terms, when you get a kill, it refunds the magazine and also emits a slowing field. Now, if you've been reading the artifact perks, Creeping Chills works really well with this gun, since stasis weapon final blows against slowed or frozen targets release another slowing burst, which means if there's anybody around who you killed, they're gonna get insta-frozen and shatter, and it's gonna chain. Now aside from that, the catalyst is the most important thing when using this gun, and basically when you hold down the reload button, it drains the super energy and does like a Giga Kamehameha that slows and freezes targets until the magazine either runs out or the super energy is gone. And since I mentioned that Sunbreaker is a really bad super on Prismatic, we're not going to use it anyways, so you might as well just drain the super meter and just blast everything in your path that's either slowed or whatever. For my weapons of choice, I'm going to choose my GOAT for Barents, or I'm going to use Indebted Kindness for Volt Shot, since Volt Shot's pretty nutty. If you want different elemental pickups, you can change this to whatever. Really important that you have a really good stasis heavy. I have a God Roll Cloaked Comfort, but if you don't, you can use literally anything else that is stasis. This is because we want to utilize the ×4 stasis weapon damage surge to not only buff our Aegir Scepter, but also our stasis heavy weapon. Moving into the armor mods, I'm using a stasis siphon and an arc siphon. That's because I'm using Forbearance or Indebted Kindness. For the arms, I'm using Firepower, Momentum Transfer, and Impact Induction to kind of help loop the powered melee and grenade more. For the chest, it's kind of whatever. I have Charged Up and then the Resist. Then for the legs, I have Stacks on Stacks to get more armor charges from my orbs. Then I have Elemental Charge since it costs 1 and I can get more charges from it as well because I have Stacks on Stacks. Then a Recuperation mod to get a burst of healing. Then for the class item, we're going to have Reaper since we're always popping our class ability, and this is yet another way to get more orbs. Then Powerful Attrition to collect those orbs whenever we do pop our class ability. And last but not least, Special Finisher so that we keep using Aegir Scepter. Now when it comes to the playstyle of this build, I would say that this build is quite flexible, as you can use any ability that you want first to engage with. Let's say that you want to use your Arc Grenade to make an orb and then you use some Aegir Scepter, but then things start to get a little hairy. Well, then you can pop your class ability, grab those orbs while also getting an overshield, kill some more things, make more orbs, and if that overshield gets off, then you use your melee to get a void overshield, and then by that time you should have your grenade back and repeat the process. As I've mentioned before, if things get too crazy, you can literally just pop up your shield, blast them, and give yourself some breathing space. At the end of the day, this build is really about survivability, but you can also really pump out some crazy numbers with the ×4 stasis surge. And yeah, that's about it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this one, you might like another Titan build I made, and I made one for Warlock and Hunter as well. To not miss out on any more fun builds, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, so you don't miss out on any more. And as always guys, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Peace and love, baby.